welcome back to Mobility Project. Today we're talking about sometimes after heavy training, we end up with a little bit of a shoulder fault. I see this sometimes after high volume pushing or after a foosh, which is a fall and outstretched hand. What ends up happening is that for some reason, even God forbid you sleep wrong on your shoulder, the shoulder ends up a little anterior in the socket, or I get a little stiff. And then what ends up happening is it feels like my shoulder doesn't fire very well, or there's something going on, like I don't know what it is. And oftentimes it's just a mechanical fault. If we can reposition that shoulder in the back of the socket, free up kind of a few of the sticky bits, then boom, we get the shoulder back right away. And this is usually what happens after just kind of tight exercise. Even think about, heavy pressing, heavy jerking, and then everything gets short and kind of pissed off at you, and then you get kind of pulled into a bad position. So here's our recipe for just kind of what feels like, hey, I don't think there's anything wrong with my shoulder, but it feels like I'm in a bad position. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get off to the first rib, and that first rib comes all the way high. Typically we think of thoracic outlet syndromes, first rib based on this anterior rib as it kind of comes around. Now that first rib works like a pump handle. It basically needs to go up and down as my arm goes up and down. It needs to flex out of the way. And if it's jammed up or stiff, then as my shoulder blade moves, I can't really clear that rib out of the way. So what we do is we take a stick. This is very high tech. You can get more fancy. Put a tennis ball on the end of the stick. I've got a hat on the end of the stick, and I'm just going to put it right in this kind of nape of my neck here. And then I'm just going to press up, and you're going to feel this very hard, bony thing. Obviously, that's what Spock was trying to kill his opponents with. He was mobilizing their first rib, posterior first rib. So I'm just going to go in here, and then I'm going to find that tight range all the way up to my face and over, and then I'm just going to reach for the thing behind me on the floor. So just reach active shoulder, and then I can press up. I can even tack my neck a little bit, but mainly it's just to try to kind of press in there, take a big breath, and try to drive that rib out of the way of the shoulder. And that's going to be one of the first things that we do to kind of reposition that shoulder joint, okay? So just hang out here. Feel like tell you a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes until you make change, all right? So that's the first thing. And then if you look at the retest on this thing, it's just silly how tight that thing gets and what a difference right away we see. Second piece, we're going to go after the first rib, second rib from a little bit different angle. So I'm going to take my lacrosse ball and I'm going to unglue the tissues, but I'm also going to come up and just work on trying to get kind of an a posterior to anterior pressure. We call this a PA because the rib is moving from this posterior anterior way. And I'm just on somewhere between the scapula and the thoracic spine, the vertebra itself. I just alternate back and forth. And I'm just going to kind of bounce back and forth a little bit and just treat until I make change. I can even bridge up. That gives me a little bit different stimulus. Find those rays, find those corners. Just free up those kind of high thoracic bits. Last piece. God, that is so amazing. I'm the man. It's so quick to reposition that shoulder. Remember our concept of positional inhibition, that when things are in a bad mechanical kind of advantage, they just don't work very well. We put them in a good position, no problem. Last thing, I'm going to go ahead and take the band, get a little distraction, set myself up, grab your distraction kettlebell. Yes, that's a pink camo skull kettlebell. You can mobilize and look good too. In fact, I don't think it's how you mobilize, it's how you look mobilizing that counts. Get a little distraction on that shoulder. That's pulling that capsule out. This is the analog to the hip capsule mode, the Super D mode. And then I just let that thing hang. You'll notice that I scoot up. I'm trying to scoot up and over my shoulder, so my shoulder's pinned to the ground. And I'm just going to hang out here, and I can even oscillate into a little bit of extra rotation, and just twist. I block the elbow with the hand, keep the arm straight, and just give this time. What's happening is that posterior capsule is just getting stretched out a little bit. Some of my big guys need a little bit heavier weight, but I like what Mark Bell said. We were talking about taking 900 pounds off the rack, and he was like, yeah, my shoulders were just set. It just felt so good. Imagine having shoulder capsules, elephant leopard, you know what I'm talking about, that were so tight that would take 900 pounds to set you back. For me, I'm baby strong. It only takes 35 pounds. So I'm just going to hang out here. That shoulder just approximates to the back of the socket. I give it some time. I can extra rotate, kind of reclaim that positional mechanic in that ideal position. Dismount after a little while. Test, retest. Wow, that is not a joke. That's that quick. And it's because all I do is clean up the mechanics. You set my shoulder back, everything's tighter, and suddenly I have much better shoulder function. When you feel like you have a shoulder tweak, or what I call shoulder dorking, go ahead and see if you can't put it back. We'll see you tomorrow.